The pen tool is a tool which a lot of people hate, and the reason they hate it is because most of them don't know how to use them properly. I can guarantee you that once you master the pen tool, you're gonna fall in love with it. And the reason why it's difficult to convince a lot of people of that is because there's a steep learning curve to it. Well, that's what a lot of people think. But let me tell you something, pen tool is very easy to understand, and that's what the objective of this lesson is. We're gonna make it absolutely simple for you to just get up and running with the pen tool, and from there you can take it to anywhere you want. The sky is the limit. I must say the universe or the space or the cosmos is the limit to it. So without any further ado, let's get started. And also we're gonna talk about the applications of the pen tool, which are also limitless, maybe to the cosmos or something more. I'm just having fun. But if you want to make, let's say, commercial selections, the most precise selections ever, pen tool is your tool. If you want to design anything in Photoshop, pen tool is your tool. Now, pen tool is not just limited to Photoshop, you also have it in Illustrator. So if you have used Illustrator, you already know how to use the pen tool. But if you want to switch to Illustrator later, or if you want to do some graphic designs in Photoshop, the pen tool is a must. You can even find pen tool in any other design application. It's so essential. So finally, let's get started. Before we move on to the pen tool, I want you to remember one key, and that key is P. Always remember, P is the shortcut for the pen tool. I don't want you to go ahead and find out the pen tool right here, which is this. But always remember, pressing the P will select the pen tool. And how can you remember it? Pen starts with the letter P. As simple as that. So this, my friend, is the pen tool. Now what does the pen tool do? It just creates a line from point A to point B. That's all there is to it. So I have selected the pen tool, and we can click to make a point in point A and click again to make another point at point B. Now this line can be a straight line, it can be a curved line, absolutely up to you. Now this, my friend, is not a regular line. Let me show you something interesting. So if we zoom in, right, no matter how much we zoom in, the thickness of this line stays the same, because that is just a representation. This, in fact, is a vector line which we call path. Now what is a path? A path is a vector line with zero thickness. That's it. Zero thickness. It's just a representation. You can add stroke to it if you want. You can turn it into a shape. That's up to you. But a path, my friend, is just a vector line with zero thickness. Always remember that. Now let me share with you the basics. If you want to create a straight line, just create a point and then click to create another point. There you have a straight line. Let's go back by pressing Ctrl or Command Z or Z, no matter how you pronounce it. So if you want to create a curved line, you would click, right? You want to create a curve in the second point, so click and drag. Okay. Now these, my friend, are called handles. They are not a part of that line. They are just handles. We'll talk about handles a little later. Now you can also create shapes with the pen tool. So let's go back again. Now at the top, again, what did we learn in the previous lessons? Whatever tool you select, the settings for that tool will be at the top in the options bar. Okay. So similarly with the pen tool at the top, you will find a drop down. Right now, a path is selected, and therefore, whenever we create that line, it is a path. What is a path again? It is a vector line with no thickness. Okay. So if you select shape, and then let's try to create something, create a point right here. And then we're just gonna click and drag, and we're gonna click and drag again. So it's creating a shape. Okay, we can finish the path. We can just create a complete loop. And as you can see, this is a shape, and we can change its color to whatever we like by double clicking on the thumbnail and changing the color to whatever we want and hit OK, right? It still has a path, but it has some fill in it, which gives you the definition of a shape. Now, what is a shape again? It is simply a path with a fill. That's all there is to it. A path with a fill. Now we have talked about layers in Photoshop and they are located right here. But what about paths? When you create a path and when there's no shape in it, where is it located? Well, let's go back. And this is something we need to understand in detail. Alright, so let's say we were creating just a pure path, and I'm gonna create a path just like this. Very exciting path, and we can control it with the handles. We'll talk about it later. Don't worry right now. Okay, so let's say this is a path. Where is it located? It's located in the Paths tab. So here you'll find the Paths tab. That's where the path is located. Also, if you cannot find the Paths tab, you can go to Window and then just make sure Paths is checked. That way, Paths tab will open. So right now, this is the work path. So I clicked somewhere else and we might be scared. Where has the path gone? I can't find it anywhere. It's located in the Paths tab. So open the Paths tab, just select the work path, and there you have it. Now, one very important thing. Whenever you're creating a path, do not forget to rename the work path. That way it will never be deleted. So let's rename it to whatever you wish. So let's rename it to my first path. Okay. Now, if you didn't rename it, sometimes what happens if you click somewhere else, maybe you closed the document, maybe you opened it, maybe you created another path somewhere else without renaming it. So it might mess with the previous path. So always name your path. If you want to create another path, don't just get started right here in the My First Path. Just create another path. Just like you create another layer, just create another. Just click on this button right there, plus button. And this is another path. So you can create as many paths as you like, just like layers. Okay, now let's talk about shapes. Let's just delete this. Okay, whenever you create a path, it'll automatically create a work path layer. Okay, let's come back to layers. Let's say you created a shape. All right, and what did we learn before? A shape is simply a path with a fill. And I can prove it to you. So let's say we created a beautiful shape, and I'm gonna go ahead and create a Spider-Man eye. I don't know if it looks like Spider-Man, but let's just assume it does. Okay, I'm just gonna do something like this. All right, let's just believe this is a Spider-Man eye. Okay, now this is a shape. We can definitely change its color to whatever we wish. So let's add a blue color to it, hit OK. Now, right here in the layers panel, we see the fill, which is the blue color. However, if you want to access the path of it, you have to go to the Paths tab, and it'll tell you that shape 1 shape path. So for the shape 1 layer, the path is right there. So if I rename it, you would understand this better. So if I rename it to Spider-Man eye, all right. Now, with that layer selected, if you go to the Paths tab, it'll tell you that this is the path for the Spider-Man eye. And if you want to modify it, you can simply just select the pen tool right here, maybe hold the Control or Command and click on it. And from there, you can just modify it and it will just change the fill accordingly. Now that we have a basic understanding of paths and shapes, let's discuss them in detail. Let's start with path. What is a path again? It is simply a vector line with no thickness. What does that tell you, my friend? It simply tells us that paths are vector. In fact, whatever you create with the pen tool, they are vector. All right. Now, since you are filling it up, maybe creating a shape or turning it into a selection on a canvas which is made up of pixel, the final export image will have pixels because you're working with a raster canvas. But whatever you do with the pen tool is created in vector. Let me show that to you. So even if we were creating, let's turn it into a path. Even if we were creating a path like this, no matter how much we zoom in, this will never ever pixelate. Alright. Now you might say, Unmesh, I try to create a shape but it pixelates. Well, let me answer that confusion. Okay, let's go back. If I were to create a shape, let's select shape from right here. And let's create something interesting. So let's say we were creating a balloon. First of all, we can change the fill already. We can always change it later. I already showed you how. But let's say we wanted to select red and then start creating our path. So maybe a hot air balloon. I'm just creating something. I know this might not be perfect, but there you have it. Let's say this is a hot air balloon. I've still not created the lower part of it, but you get the point. Okay, so we can bring it right here. Now you might say, Unmesh, I created this path, but when I zoom in, it's pixelated. Let's try to zoom in even more. You would notice that this is pixelated. Why is it pixelated? Didn't I just say whatever you create with the pen tool is a vector? Well, yes, in a way, whatever you create with the pen tool is created in vector. But since you are just creating it on a raster canvas, this canvas is made up of pixels, therefore you see the pixel, it's still a vector. Let me show this to you. So if I were to make this bigger, right? And then zoom in, see? Only if you zoom in too much, you see the pixels. It's so tack sharp. If we make it small again, okay, and then big again, it preserves all the details. What does that tell us? It either has to be a smart object or a vector. This is definitely not a smart object. So what does that tell us? This is a vector. If you were doing this with a raster image, you wouldn't see the same result. So let's say we rasterize this. Okay, so let's first make it a little smaller. Okay. All right. Now right click on the layer and then choose rasterize. All right. Now if we make it smaller, okay, it loses all the details. Let's make it big again. You would notice the edges that it has lost absolutely all the details. If we make it too small again, all right, and we try to make it a little bigger, have a look at the edge, it is losing details. So again, whatever you create with the pen tool, whether it's a shape or a path, that's created in vector format. And you already understand what vector and raster is from the previous lessons. Before we get into how to use the pen tools, the details of its application, I want you to understand the link of how the pen tool is linked to everything that is vector. Okay, so whatever vector related thing you do in Photoshop is somehow always related to the pen tool. For instance, let's say we were to create a shape. So I'm just gonna create a custom shape right here. You can create a line or a polygon, whatever, custom shape, whatever. All right. So even if you were to create a very advanced shape, so you can choose custom shapes from right here. Very many shapes you can find, boats, flowers, different shapes. So let's go ahead and create a complicated one. So let's go for this one, okay? And now when we create a shape, this is a shape. We had already chosen the fill to be red, and let's bring it to the center. Okay, you can change its color by double clicking on the thumbnail. You can change its color to whatever you wish. Okay, hit OK. Now you might ask, how is this related to the pen tool? Well, my friend, we just discussed it. This is a shape. It's not a smart object. It is in fact a shape. Now what is a shape? A shape is a path with a fill. How do we create a path? With the pen tool. And what is a path? A vector line with no thickness. Of course, you can add stroke to it, but let's zoom in. You can see that it's a shape by looking at this symbol right here. It's time for you to understand what this symbol means. It just means it's a shape. Okay. Now, if that layer is selected, let's name this flower. And now if we go to the Paths tab, you have the path for that corresponding shape. The layer only has the fill, but if you go to the path, you have the path of that corresponding shape. If you want to just modify it, that's easy. Just select the pen tool, You can see the path already activated. Now you can hold the control or command, click on the path and just move things here and there. This is absolutely modifiable, if that's a word. You get the point. So I can move it here and there. I can move a certain point up, just modify it in any which way you want. So you can remove one of these, you can make one of these longer, shorter, taller, and it's still created in vector. So if we go to the layers panel, and then if we make it smaller, like very small, if we make it big again, it doesn't lose details. Now that we have all the theory in place, it's time for us to begin with learning how to use the pen tool. Let me ask you a quick question. What is the shortcut for the pen tool? We just told you, P. Don't forget it, okay? So how to use the pen tool? Step 1, press P to select the pen tool. All right. Now you need to choose what do you want to create. Do you want to create a shape or a path? Let's start with path because we already don't want to predefine that we want to create a shape. In most cases, I always select a path because I'm mostly creating a selection or stuff. So click on this drop down and choose path. First, let's start by creating a path with just straight lines. Okay, then we'll get to curves later. So click to create a point, click to create one more point, click, click. This just creates a path. Now, if you want to close the loop, just go to the starting point and it will give you a symbol next to the pen tool with a circle. That circle just tells you that we are closing the loop. So if you click on it, the loop is closed. Okay. Now let me give you a quick tip. And this is a very essential one. If you create a point and then if you hold the shift key, if you go a little bit here and there, if you click, it'll always create a 90-degree line, right? No matter how inaccurate you are, it'll always create a 90-degree line. If you are right here in the middle, hold the shift key, it'll always create a 45-degree line. If you click here, it'll always create a 0-degree line. So it's either horizontal or vertical or at 45 degrees diagonal. Right, so let's say you were to create a rocket and I'm gonna just click on it here, straight line, click again and then click again. Now this is not a straight line because I was not very accurate, so we can always go back and press Ctrl or Command R to bring up the ruler. Now you can bring up the ruler right here to this point, okay, and then you can just continue the line and then continue right there. So smart move, isn't it? So you can remove the ruler by holding the Ctrl or Command while the pen tool is selected and just take it away. It's gone. Okay, now this is a rocket, but this is just a path. How do I convert this to a shape if I had not already selected shape right there? Simple. First, just name the path. Do not forget it. Rocket. Okay. Now, with the path selected, let's say if the path is not selected, how do you select that? All right, the path is not selected. How do I select the path? Simple, just select the rocket. So with the path selected, click on the adjustment layer icon and then choose solid color and pick any color you wish. Okay, hit OK. Now this, my friend, is a shape and you can clearly define that by looking at this icon right there. Now let's learn how to create a curved path. Quick question, what is a path? A path is a vector line with no thickness. Okay, so if you want to create a curves, we need to use something called handles. Okay, so click and drag. You can click and drag from the very first point to create some handles. Okay, it doesn't create a path. Click and drag on the second point as well to create a curved path. Now these, my friend, are handles. These are not the part of the path. Now what does handle do? It defines two things. One, the intensity of the curve. Number two, the angle of the curve. So the longer, by the way, to modify a handle, again, you can hold the Ctrl or Command, click and drag to modify the handle. All right. If I move it here and there, if I just, rotate it along its axis, which is this point, it just changes the angle of the curve, right? It changes the angle right here, as you can see. There you go. Number 2, it changes the intensity of the curve. In other words, it changes how much this handle is influencing the curve. Okay, so if it's a shorter handle, if we hold the control or command and make it shorter, you will see that the curve is not too much right here. It's not influencing it much. The longer we make the handle, the more it influences the curve. Makes sense? So therefore, handles affect the path in 2 ways. Number 1, the angle. Number 2, the intensity, or how much influence it has. You see, the bigger the person or the higher the position in politics, the more influence that person has over the general public. So similarly right here, the taller the handle, the more the influence. Now you have learned how to create a path with straight lines. You have learned how to create a path with curves. But what if you want to create a corner, right? Let's say you were to create a water droplet, right? Very simple, very nice water droplet. So let's create it. So let's say I were to start from right here, okay? And we continue. Okay, this is the tip of the water droplet. Now when I try to finish it right here, just create a closed loop, probably something like this. We don't want a curve right here. We want it to be a corner. You want it to be a sharp corner. How do we make that happen? How do we change a curve to a corner? We'll talk about converting later. Let me show you a quick glimpse of it. What I would do is I would hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on it to convert that to a corner. It doesn't have any handles. It just simply deletes the handles. Now we can introduce points right here and just take it in to make it look more fancy. But what if while creating the path, we wanted to create a corner? Well, it's easy. So let's say we were creating this. We were in this way. One method is you wouldn't click and drag. You would just click here and then finish the loop. But what if you want to click and drag? What if you want to add a curve in there? Well, even if you wanted to click and drag, and create a curve, what you can do is before continuing the path, just hold the Alt key or the Option key and click on the point. It will delete the forward handle. That way that handle will not influence the upcoming curve. Now you can just finish the loop right here. Just modify it a little bit and there you go. That is a corner. One more thing I want you to understand about handles. So let's say we were creating a curve like this and I'm continuing it right here. Now there are 2 handles as you can see to each point. It can have just one handle, that's up to you, as we saw in just the last example. But basically it has 2 handles as you can see right here. The handle on this side will influence just this part of the curve, which is on the left of the point. The handle on the right side will influence only the right side of the curve. So if I were to hold the control or command and if I were to make it, let's say, taller, see, it only influenced this side, and if I were to make this shorter or taller, it only influenced the other side. Now as you can see, as I move the angle of this handle, the angle of that handle changes as well. We'll talk about breaking the handles later. Also, as you are creating a path, let's say I just clicked, I didn't click and drag to create a handle. Now in here, for the second point, I clicked and dragged. Now we know that this handle right here influences this curve, but there is no point right here ahead. What does this handle control? Well, it controls the upcoming path. So let's say we were to create a point right here. Even if I just clicked it, I didn't even click and drag, this handle influenced it, creating this curve. The pen tool does have a lot of applications which we will discuss. It can create shapes, it can make selections. However, you might ask, why use the pen tool? There are lots of other tools, and where does the pen tool have the advantage? Well, again, whatever we do with the pen tool is created in vector. And the second advantage to the pen tool is that you can modify it later. For instance, let's say you were creating a shape, okay? So let's create a very funny shape right here. and you can have a trendy shape for a business card or something, and something like this. All right, and let's say we're gonna place a face in here, or you want to create a fill, whatever you want to do with this. This is just a random shape, nothing meaningful about it. Okay, once you have the path selected, you can fill it, right? You can do whatever you want. So I'm just gonna fill it with black. You can also use it as a placeholder. So if I go to my folder, sorry about that, if I go to my Finder or Explorer, and if I drag in and drop in this photo, right, and hit enter, and then you can hold the Alt key or the Option key and click on the line between these two layers. This creates a clipping mask. It limits the portrait to just that shape or whatever is beneath it. Okay, so we're gonna just adjust it to that area. Okay, and let's say we're creating a design or maybe a bio page about her on a funny shape. Now the best part about this is that, by the way, this is created in vector. All right, so no matter how big you make the shape, it will never pixelate. You can make it smaller and big again. And the second advantage is, and this is a big one, you can modify this shape anytime you like. So you can choose this, you can go to the paths, you can select that shape, and then with the help of the pen tool, we can just hold the Control or Command and click on one of these points to modify it accordingly to our tastes. And that's the best part about the pen tool. Whenever you're working with the pen tool, the best thing is that you can modify things later. And that's why we love its flexibility. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of the pen tool. And that is, how do you modify a path? So let's say with the pen tool, you already created a path and you want to modify it and you want to change something. How do you do that? Also, let's say you already have a shape that you want to modify and you already opened a ready-made shape that there are some things that you want to modify there. How do you do that? That's what we're going to learn right now. And through this section, you will also learn techniques that will help you create a path. Okay, so let's say I have created this blob with the pen tool. Okay, first we will learn about the basic moving of handles and points. So while the pen tool is selected, that can easily be done by holding the Control or Command, and then you can select a point and you can move it. Okay, as simple as that. If you want to change the intensity of a curve or the angle of a curve, what did we learn? Handles control that. So you can again hold the Control or Command and click on the handles and drag it, move it around, right? Now, if you notice it, right now, both these handles are linked, meaning that if I move it around and if I change the angle of this one changes as well. It's like a seesaw in there, right? So if I move it, that side moves as well. What if you want to turn it into a corner? Or in other words, what if you want to break the seesaw? And that brings us to learning how to convert a curve to a corner. So have a look at this point, for example. This is a curve. It's not a corner. So what are the ways in which we can convert this into a corner? Technique number 1, breaking the handle. So right now, it's like a seesaw, right? If you move this, the other side moves. If you want to break it, you would hold the Alt key or the Option key and then drag one of these handles. Now see, it is finally broken. Now you can hold the Control or Command and modify it, turn it into a corner, do whatever you want. That's one way of converting a curve to a corner. This way you would also have a corner, and also at the same time you would have handles to those corners to just manipulate the curve around it. So this one manipulates the curve on the right side of it, and this one manipulates the curve on the left side of it. It changes two things, the intensity and the angle. The other way of converting a curve to a corner is simply removing the handles. So let's go back to when it was a curve. Alright, right now as you can see, this is a curve. Now the handles are still broken, right? Let's go back. Okay, now the handles are not broken. The other way is simply removing the handles, and you can do that again by holding the Alt key or the Option key, and this time instead of clicking and dragging one of these handles, all you gotta do is to click on the point. This will absolutely remove the handles, but it also takes away the control of if you wanted to create a curve here. But if straight lines is what you wanted, well, maybe this is the way you want to choose. Now, the third way is about doing the reverse. What if you want to convert corners to curve? So if this is a corner, how would you convert this into a curve? Well, again, you would hold the Alt key or the Option key, click and drag in the direction of the path. If you drag on the opposite direction of the path, you would see something like this. So in the direction of the path, this will introduce a handle, and therefore this is now a curve. So now you can modify it in any way you want. Now you might ask, what if Unmesh, it's a broken handle? How do I now just convert it into a curve? Again, the same thing. Hold the Alt key or the Option key, click and drag from right here. Now you might have noticed that when we hold the Alt key or the Option key and just hover over the handle or the point, the icon of the pen tool changes to an arrow-like icon, and that is the icon of the Convert Point tool. And we can easily convert the pen tool to the Convert Point tool momentarily by holding the Alt key or the Option key, and that's what we were doing. If you want to take the long route, you can always click and hold on the pen tool group and choose the Convert Point tool and work from there. Then you wouldn't have to hold the Alt key or the Option key. It's the same thing. Then you would again have to go back to the pen tool. Alright, so this is actually a shortcut. The shortcut is just holding the Alt key or the Option key, and then it automatically converts the pen tool to the Convert Point tool momentarily, and when you release the Alt key, it's back again to the pen tool. So we learned 3 ways of converting a curve to a corner and vice versa. The first way was just breaking the seesaw or breaking the handles, and we can do that by holding the Alt key or the Option key and dragging one of the handles. The second way was absolutely removing the handles, and that we can achieve by holding the Alt key or the Option key and clicking on the point. Okay. And the third way, which was converting a corner to a curve, and that is something we do by again holding the Alt key or the Option key, clicking and dragging on the point. That's pretty much it. Now it's time for us to do some practice sessions with the pen tool. Let's say you have a circle and you want to trace it and you want to create a path around it. Okay, so this is just a practice session. It doesn't have to have a practical applications. We're just practicing so that you understand the technique that goes into the real world. Okay, so let's go to the pen tool. Again, what is the shortcut for the pen tool? P. Okay. Now there are 2 ways to tracing. When you are in a situation like this, it might tempt you to just create a point here. Okay. Click and drag and create a curve right here to kind of match it, and then create another, probably modify the handles, and then go here and then finish the loop right here. Okay. Now we need to work on this. Okay. No matter what you did, no matter how perfect you were, alright, so let us turn the background layer off for a moment. You can't do that because this is locked. So click on the lock to unlock it. And let's go to the paths. So I'm just going to create a solid color adjustment layer so that you can see what's going on. Okay. I'm going to go back again to the paths, and as you can see, this is not perfect at all. And there's a corner right here because we started with just one point. It did not have handles to influence the surrounding paths. Instead of doing this, let's delete it. Let's go back to layers and just turn off the white there. We are tracing right now. Anyway, so with the pen tool, this time, instead of creating one point here, we will start with clicking and dragging. That way, let's do it right here in the center. It would be more better. Now, while you're clicking and dragging, let me give you one more tip. If you want it to be absolutely perfect straight line, you can always hold the Shift key. What does that do? It keeps it either 0 degree, 45 degree, or 90 degree. So we're going to keep it like this. And then click and drag just right here. See how perfect it is right now? And similarly, we'll just click and drag right here. Now I need to move it. How did we move it? By holding the Control or Command and just moving the point. Click and drag right there. And now when you finish it, you will see that there is no more corner right there. So if I turn this on, you'll be able to see there's no more cornering. Why? Because there's handles on both sides. So if I hold the control or command and click on that point, you would notice that on both sides we have handles and handles are linked. That's why it's a curve. If it had a broken handle or just handle on one side, it would not be a complete curve. Now what can you do with a path like this? You can create a shape out of this, and we learned that we can convert this into a selection. We'll get to that later as well. Now let's turn the difficulty up a little bit. And we need to understand something, and that is whenever you're creating a shape or whenever you're just tracing along something, the lesser the points you create, the more efficient you are. So in this example, let's say we were to trace this moon. So let's go to the pen tool, and obvious choice would be starting right here, okay, and then just creating a point right here. Probably you want to adjust these, and then just bringing it back right here, but it's not going the way I want it to go, right? So we have to create a point here, and again it's creating a curve. We need to break the handle by holding the Alt key or the Option key. Just break the handle like this, and then finish it right here. Again, it's creating another problem. What is the problem that it's creating? Well, the handle is not broken, so we need to break the handle again here as well. So we need to hold the Alt key or the Option key, click to break the handle, and then move this handle at the back. Okay, it was a little complicated. There is an easier way of doing this, and let me teach you the straight line technique. And that's why I told you, by learning how to modify a path, you can learn how to create a path. And the technique goes like this. First, don't worry about creating handles, introducing handles, bending them, breaking them, none of that. All you gotta do is this: create a point, that's it. Create a point where it will join, create a point, and then probably it will go from there, so finish it. Now you can spend all day by holding the Alt key or the Option key and then just introduce something like this, okay? Then you can hold the Alt key or the Option key, introduce something like this, all right? You can keep holding the Alt key or the Option key, bend it right here, keep holding the Alt key or the Option key, just improve the shape here, bend it right here, and then you can just take your time to modify this. Isn't that easy? Now by mistake, don't break this handle. We want this area to be a curve, so adjust that accordingly. Okay. And then with these handles, you can just work out these curves. And there you have it. So that is the straight line technique. It is simply just clicking and creating points along the path that you want to create or an area that you want to select, and then later modifying it. That's all there is to it. Now let's learn about the tools inside the pen tool group. So let's say you have a path. By the way, this is a shape. And if you go to the paths tab, you select it. Let's select the pen tool so that the path is activated. All right. Now, if you click and drag, there are lots of tools right here. Here you have the freeform pen tool, which I seldom use. So let's say you are creating another path. So what that allows you to do, it allows you to draw your own thing, and it converts that to path. That is the freeform pen tool. You will seldom use it. All right, not very useful. There's this curvature pen tool. That is the easy way of the pen tool. I would not recommend using it. That is just the easy pen tool where you don't have to worry so much about the handles, converting it to corners and all of that. But in my opinion, it just doesn't give you enough control. And the way it works is like this. You click, click, click. It automatically turns everything to a curve, right? And if you want to convert anything to a corner, you would just hold the Alt key or the Option key and click to convert it to a corner. It does not give you handles to control the intensity and the angle of the curve. But the great part about this is that once you are done creating a path with the curvature pen tool, you can always go back to the pen tool and you can get the handles later. But this is not what I recommend because I don't have full control over the path while I am creating it. So this is not what I would recommend. You can always play with it. If it works for you, great. The best tool is the tool that works for you. I'm not saying a tool is bad or a tool is good, but it might be good or bad for you. I just shared my personal experience and what I think. The fact is, the regular pen tool gives you more control. The curvature pen tool is an easy tool and therefore it gives you less control. Now these are the tools that we already can work with just shortcuts, and we already used them. Okay, so let's say you have a path right there. Let's go back to the giraffe path. Now you know we can modify the path by holding the control or the command key and then first of all clicking on it to just view the points, and then you can hold the control or command and you can modify these, you can modify the handles. We know that. So what is the control actually doing right here? Well, it is selecting the direct selection tool. So this, my friend, right here is the direct selection tool. Once you select that tool, now I'm not holding the control or command, we can modify all of these points. Okay. So it's simply a shortcut. Holding the control or command is simply a shortcut for the direct selection tool. So if you're with the pen tool and you hold the control or command, it temporarily selects the direct selection tool. Then you have, before we jump on to the others, then you have the path selection tool. Okay, this just allows you to select the path and it allows you to move the entire path. So if there are some other paths right here, so if I were to select the pen tool and then create some other paths, you can select the path selection tool to select either this path or that path. You get the point. So I'm going to select that and press the delete key to delete that. So let's go back to the pen tool. Now, what does add anchor point or delete anchor point tool do? So let's say when you were creating the moon, okay, and you created something like this and it's just not working. So while we were right here, we need to hold the Alt or Option and break it and then continue the path and finish it right here. And again, it's not finishing. So again, hold the Alt key or the Option key and then break this. And there you have it. Okay, I accidentally converted that into a corner. So let's say this is the moon. It doesn't look that fancy like a moon, but let's just assume this is a moon. Let's say you wanted to add some more curve right here. Okay, you should be efficient to use less number of points, but let's say you wanted to just drag in here a little bit. How do you add a point? Well, the long way is selecting the add anchor point tool and just clicking here to add a point, and then you can just drag it here and there. Similarly with the camel. So how do you delete the entire thing? So you can just select the path selection tool, select the entire thing, press the delete key. That's it. Or there's another way is, let's say you are in the pen tool and one of the points is selected. You can hold the control or command and click to select another point, but that is not selected now. So select the first one, hold the control and shift together, select the next point, select the next point, select the next point. All of the points are now selected, and then you can press the delete key. That's the long way. So path selection tool is an easier way. Other way is, don't create other paths in the same path layer. Don't do that. So if you want to do something else, so create a new path right there and create something there. And then if you want to delete it, all you got to do is to delete that layer. So it just gives you more flexibility, just like layers. Now, we were talking about the add anchor point tool. So you don't have to again and again select the add anchor point tool. If you're just in the pen tool and let's say this path is activated and you want to add a point somewhere, all you gotta do is this. Just hover over that line and it automatically converts to the pen tool with a plus, which is add anchor point tool. So click on it to introduce an anchor point and then you can modify it in whatever way you want. What if you want to delete an anchor point? You don't have to just go to the delete anchor point tool and click on it to delete it. You don't have to do that. Just if the pen tool is selected, if you don't hold anything and if you hover over any of these points, and then if you notice it turns into the pen tool icon with a minus, just click, it'll delete that. Now moving on to the final section of the video, and that is the applications of the pen tool. The first and the most important application is creating selections. Now the pen tool can help you create the most precise selection ever because you have the complete control over it. It's not like that you're free-handing a selection with the lasso tool. It's not that. You can modify the points, you can control the curve, Everything is in your hands. You also don't have to go to the mask and brush it out. This is way more refined. Now, it does take time, but it gives you the highest quality results. As with any quality things, they take time. Okay, so let's say, for example, we need to select these pair of shoes. So even if the edge is a little up and down, you can choose to create a smooth selection. So let's start right here. So click and drag to create a point, and then click and drag. See how smooth that is? Now, the trick is to stay a little inside. If you stay a little outside, it'll give you a little halo, which we don't want. So I'm just gonna ignore the ups and downs. I can modify them by holding the Control or Command. And I'm gonna take it forward, click and drag. If you wanna modify them again, hold the Control or Command. Now stick with me because there are some essential techniques to learn. Now here, I accidentally clicked somewhere else and it's not continuing this path, right? There's a problem. What is the problem? By the way, if you cannot see the path, let me make it a little clearer. Just add a solid color adjustment layer. This is just to make it more visible to you, okay? It's visible to me, but you might be streaming this video. So again, so let's select a path, okay? Let's say you accidentally clicked somewhere else and you were not able to continue the path. Now when you try to create a point right here, it starts again from there. How do you continue a path? First of all, let's delete this point by holding the Control or Command, clicking on it and pressing the delete key. Let's select this. By holding the Control or Command, click on it to select it. Where you ended, all you gotta do is to just hover over it. Now it's gonna give you a symbol of the pen tool with a square with 2 lines around it. So that means that you wanna continue that path. So you click on it. Now it will continue from there. So let's join in right here. Now right here, we wanna turn this into a corner. There are 2 ways. First, breaking the handle. So I can break the handle like this and continue. The other way is, once you click and drag right here, you can hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on it. And if the path is not continuous, it'll only break the handle that's coming next, okay? So now you can continue right here. See how smooth that is? And I'm just gonna take away this white solid color. This was just to make the paths more visible to you. And we're gonna continue with finishing the path. I'm gonna fast forward this just a little bit. Now keep in mind, the goal here is to not be very accurate along the edge. The goal here is to create a great selection so that after you mask it, it looks perfect, okay? For instance, there was a lot of ups and downs, bumps here, but we don't want to show the accuracy right here. This is not journalism, this is advertisement. So that's why I made it smooth. Let's continue. So I want to bring this up a little bit. So we can just hover over it, click to just introduce a point and bring it up. And also, if you are having problems viewing the path, you can just change the appearance of it. This does not create anything. This does not create a stroke. This is just a representation. You can do this by clicking on this gear right there. You can change the thickness to, let's say, 3 pixels. The path gets a little thicker, as you can see right here. Okay, makes it easy for you to see. So I'm just gonna change it back to something I can see. So I'm gonna change it to 2 pixels. 3 was too thick. And if the path is not really visible to you, you can definitely change the thickness, but besides that, you can also change the color of it. So default, this is light blue, there's green. Green is more visible right here. So I'm gonna keep it green and maybe thickness to 2%. The more gap you will have between each point, the better the curve would be. So try not to create too many points with very less gaps. Try create less points and still have a good path. Now this is where it gets a little messy in areas like this. You might want to change the thickness back to 1, and then you can also go for more lesser thicknesses and check if everything is all right. Everything has the right curve. You can also click on this, make the handle a little longer to make the curve a little better. And then let's continue from right here. So let's modify it just a little bit and create a point right here. Goes well. Let's click and drag again. Now this is a corner, my friend. So I'm gonna bring it right there. Again, we're gonna create a corner. Stay a little inside, that is the trick. Zoom out to see if you're selecting the right thing. Sometimes what happens is that you go along the wrong path selecting the wrong things and something that's not even the part of the shoe. I might have just gone wrong selecting the shadow line. So check that. Time to time, zoom out. That looks alright. From there, I think I can do a long curve till here, right? The further it is, the better the curve is gonna be. Let's make the line a little thicker so I can see what's happening in there. That's a good selection right there. And I think we can bring a curve in here as well. Let's finish it. Just click here and there you go. You can modify this curve by holding the Control or Command and clicking right there. And there you have the path. And now do not forget to do this, and that is rename this. Rename the path. In the Paths tab, double click on this right here. Okay. And let's rename this Shoes. Now, how do you convert that into a selection? Well, that's pretty simple. You just right click on it and then choose Make Selection. Now, how much feather you want? We do not want any blur or softening in the selection. So I'm just going to keep the feather to 0. Okay. And hit OK. You have brilliant selections. Another way is press Ctrl or Command D, and that's why I asked you to rename it, save it. That is holding the Control or Command and clicking on the thumbnail. Let's make it bigger so that you can see. Clicking on the thumbnail of the path by holding the Control or Command, that makes a selection as well. Now once you have a selection, so I'm just gonna delete the extra layer. You can click on the mask button. You have a perfect selection. Now let's create a solid color adjustment layer to see how good it is. Black at the back, and there you have it. Just take a look at it. How smooth, how nice the mask is, isn't it? Nothing comes close. How nice the curve is right here. Now if you want to add a little feather, we can do it later. We don't have to do it beforehand. And that is, we can always go to the mask and then probably add some Gaussian blur. Also, what you can do is that you can just select the mask and then you can open up the mask properties or go to Windows and then make sure properties is checked. And here we can add a little feather, probably 1 pixel, just adds a little softness in there. Or when you created a selection, so let's say it was something like this, the selection was still not there. You hold the Control or Command and click on the thumbnail to make a selection. After you make a selection, you can also add a feather by going to Select, Modify, and then Feather. But it's the same as, let's say, just select the path and then right click on the path and just choose Make Selection. You can add a feather right there. So it's all the same thing. I would suggest just make a selection and then mask it out. If you need feather, you can always do that later. For now, let's create a solid color adjustment layer, black, and we're gonna add a little bit of feather by just adding some Gaussian blur here. Filter, blur, and then Gaussian blur in the mask. A blur of 1 pixel is fine. We already checked that. And we hit OK. If there was some halos, we can always push it inside by contracting. So hit OK right now. And this is such a wonderful selection, isn't it? Now you can create some wonderful effects with it as well. To save the resolution and don't let it lose details, so you can always right click on it and convert it into a smart object, convert to smart object. And then you can make it smaller, larger, place it right there, type in the advertisement So with the type tool selected, just click and type in whatever you want. Awesome. Place the text beneath it, and then you can just do whatever you want. Add some text right here, create some interesting effects. What I would do is create a drop shadow, right click, double click on the right hand side, and just click on check on drop shadow for the shoes. And you can move the shadow. Once you have drop shadow selected, you can move the shadow from right here, and then you can control how much blur it has and how much opacity it has for the shadow. Just some interesting effects. You can change the background color to whatever you want. You can change it to a yellow color. The one I like is something like this. Okay, let's change the text color to something darker. There you have it. Or you can also do something fancy. So we can actually bring it in the center, make it a little larger, make the shadows a little less, and maybe bring it a little downwards like this. More softer, and there you go. This looks a lot better. We can actually change the color of the text to white. Looks more exciting. And you can also change fonts to, I'm gonna change it to Babus. This fits in a little more, goes with it. And Babus is a font that doesn't have italic. So you can actually create a fake italic by clicking on this icon right there at the top with the text tool selected, and then click on this grid at the top and choose faux italic, which is actually false italic. And there you have it. Let's make it a little larger, and there you go. Just a little design change here and there makes a ton of difference. You can bring it in the center, bring it a little bit at the top, and you can type in anything right here. Another essential application of the pen tool is definitely creating a shape, and we already learned how to do that. But let's learn something interesting. You can actually create a shape and fit some text onto it, and the text will go according to the shape. Now let's say we want the text to go something like in the shape of it. So first of all, let's draw some margins. Press Ctrl or Command R to open up the ruler. Let's draw some margins here, some at the bottom, right here, where the article will end, and at the top where the article will start. So now you can choose the pen tool shortcut P, don't forget it, and then you can create a selection. Now I'm going to change the color of the pen tool to default color. Okay. And now we're going to stay a little outside and make a selection something like this. You can take your time to do a better one. Now once you reach the end, hold the Alt or Option key and click on it to just remove the handle. Hold the Shift key and then click here. Straight line, hold the Shift key and then click here. Straight line, and then finish it right over there. Now this is a loop. Now all you gotta do first, let's save it and let's type in body text. Okay. Now just select this path, just click on the text tool and just click inside it. Right now you can type anything you want and it will maintain the shape. Isn't that amazing? So first of all, I'm just gonna left align it. Just click on left align right there. And we're gonna change the font to something that goes well with body texts. And for this example, let's choose Minion variable concept regular. And also we can, the advantage of variable fonts is that you can control the weight and the optical size from right here. But there's a lot of gap between these. So we're gonna click on this icon. First of all, make sure faux bold and faux italic is not checked. And this parameter controls the space between the lines and it's called leading. And you can set this to automatic. And there you go. You can clearly see, first of all, let's change the color to black, that it follows that shape. Now let's place some text here, some random text. Right now, lorem ipsum random text is placed right there. So we can just fill the entire thing by going to type and then paste lorem ipsum. It just fills even more. You can do it again, paste lorem ipsum, and then again. And as you can see, it follows that shape. Now, if I click outside, you'll be able to notice if I remove all of these, just hide all of these guides for a while by pressing Ctrl or Command and the colon key, it hides the guides. There you go. Have a look. It follows that shape. Isn't that pretty cool? You can also have justified text. So if you double click on the T, you can click on justified text. It's not right here, but if you click on it and if you click on the paragraph, there's this justified. So it'll also match on the other side, but this is not what I recommend. This is good, but if that's something you're going for, you can also click on that. And there you have it. It just follows that perfect, nice shape. So there you go, my friend. That's all there is about the pen tool in Photoshop. Now, the pen tool is not a tool that you watch this lesson and you have absolutely mastered it. It requires practice. Now, I understand it can be a little boring. However, if you try to incorporate the pen tool in creating some interesting composites, changing the background, maybe creating advertising banners, selecting subjects accurately, having absolute control over the selection, once you understand those aspects of the pen tool, it'll become more and more interesting as you continue to work with it. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you learned something about the pen tool that will encourage you to just go to Photoshop, just try, experiment different things with it. I'll see you in the next lesson. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.